Kawhi's locker was next to mine. Time goes by so fast in the league. A lot of people don't see that behind the scenes.
You have to prove yourself day in and day out.
I'll do whatever I gotta do. I was just shocked. The most impactful basketball season I've had in my life.
Hey everyone, welcome back or welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Chloe Clark. And joining us today, we've got Jordan Miller of the Los Angeles Clippers. How are you feeling?
I feel good. Thank you for having me.
The viewers will soon find out that your journey has not been so linear, 5 years in college, proving your way at every level, and now in year 3 in the NBA. So let's just start there because it is in the thick of the season, year 3. How's season been treating you so far?
It's been treating me good. I mean, we had our fair shares of ups and downs. Right now we're on a 6-game winning streak. Yep, 6 games. And, just trying to find ways to bounce back because, it's a long season, 82 games. I feel like a lot of people don't really think about how long and how many games 82 is. You know what I'm saying? You're traveling a lot, 3 days home, 3 days away, week away, 1 day home. You know what I mean? So just dealing with the rigorous schedule, but also just finding ways to enjoy it.
So we all know that everyone's story starts somewhere. For you, that was about 3 years ago, draft night. And as I mentioned, you spent 5 years in between George Mason and the University of Miami. So as any young Hooper's dream, right, to hear their name called, talk to me through that night for you and what stands out the most from that core memory.
Yeah, I think what stands out to me the most is just the stress of knowing if I'm going to get drafted. Because a lot of people don't know this. Obviously my agent at the time and my close family know, but I didn't know where I was going to get drafted or if I was. I had 1/2 confirmation from Milwaukee. They had the last pick in the draft, and they were like, if you're still available, we'll take you. And so at the time, the draft was 1 day because now they split into 2, I think, right. 2 years ago or a year ago or something like that. And so I just remember seeing everybody get drafted and the mistake, if I could do it all over again, right? I had the draft party start at 8 because I believe the draft started at 8. When I tell you we were, the food was all 8. It got to 11 o'clock and still we're waiting because, commercial breaks and stuff.
Right.
So I probably would have had everybody come just a little bit later. But it was still good vibes. Everyone stayed through. So just grateful to get my name called.
Yeah, it all turned out the way that it's supposed to be. Before draft night comes the combine as well. I'm always curious to know, guys, experience with, interviews, workouts. Does anything stand out from that process for you?
It's the most important interview of your life, especially when you're an athlete and you've given your whole life to the sport. So going into it, there's nerves. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. But just trying to, like I said, enjoy the process of it all. And put it in God's hands, because at the end of the day, I couldn't control where I was going to go. I can just put my best foot forward and just kind of live with the results.
So then fast forward, you make it to Los Angeles, sign to the Clippers, and suddenly you're surrounded by some real deal veterans, right? Paul George at the time, Kawhi. That's not regular access for any player.
Right.
What stands out the most for you from that season?
Yeah, so we also had Russ too, and then James ended up coming at the trade deadline, I believe. And so I just remember getting there the first day because, I would watch NBA TV all the time growing up. I would just have it kind of rolling in the background. I could probably tell you what they were going to say at one point because I watched it so many times over and over. So actually seeing them in person and almost, because you put them on a pedestal or anybody when you see them on TV. And so to be in a room with them and Kawhi's locker was next to mine. They ended up moving it, but it was next to mine. So I remember when I first got to LA after they flew me out, they showed me my locker and stuff. When I see Kawhi's name right next to me, it was just whoa,
Crazy,
surreal moment. But the one thing I respect about those guys is no one's too cool for school, people will say, or too high on themselves. You ask them a question, they're going to answer it, So it's cool being able to pick their brains and, they're in their chapter 18, 19, 20, and I'm going into a chapter 1. So it was cool for them to kind of have that vet presence,
Out of the veterans that you've been able to share the locker room with, has anyone taken you under your wing per se or said a piece of advice that really resonated with you?
I would say a piece of advice that resonated with me is probably from PG, Paul. He just said enjoy it. And it sounds cliche, but it's funny how everyone always says the time goes by so fast in the league. And it's like, the first year or so, or 2 years, 3 years, it feels so long, and I'm like, there's no way they're sitting here telling me that it goes by fast. But then you think about like high school and you're like,
Right.
man, like time did fly, you know what I'm saying?
Flies.
So just trying to like stay present, stay in the moment, not get too high, not get too low, and just kind of be neutral.
So now that you are sharing the court with players like Kawhi and James Harden, watching them up close day in and day out, what's the biggest takeaway that you've been able to see from the way that they approach or prepare for big time moments?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the work ethic. I feel like people say that all the time. Again, a lot of this stuff is cliche, but it's like true. Like for example, James, on days we have a game, he's coming in at 10 o'clock in the morning working out. A lot of people don't see that behind the scenes, you know what I'm saying? So that, and how specific he is with the things that he's doing, right? Like everything you see him doing on the court is what he's doing behind the scenes. So like almost like a power, and you don't have to be there for a long time, but when you are there, do it game speed, and make sure you're doing game reps. So definitely the work ethic, I would say, is like biggest takeaway.
I had learned that James was your favorite player growing up. Is that true? Yeah. So is that sort of a surreal moment for you to be able to share the locker room, share a floor, and wear the same jersey as him?
For sure. So James is my favorite player. He's a lefty. I'm a lefty.
Yes.
So we kind of had that like little lefty connection. And so funny story, right? My first year, again, he came to the team during the trade deadline. And we had a game that night. I couldn't tell you who it was, but the trade had just happened a day prior. He wasn't playing, but he flew in to watch the game, him and PJ Tucker. And I remember I'm sitting down, I'm eating my food before the game, doing my like normal, pregame stuff. And I'm looking down at my food, I'm eating, and I just see a hand, right? And I'm like, oh, this is probably like, I don't know who this is, but you know what I'm saying? Like, let me look up and see. And it was James. And I didn't know he was coming to the game, so I was just shocked, right? But obviously I played cool, so I dap him up. He's like, James. I'm like, Jordan, nice to meet you, this, that, and the third. But it's definitely dope being able to like see how he thinks the game and be around him. He's a professional, right? And no matter what you hear about him, like at the end of the day, when it comes to basketball, he does it. So
are you guys able to bond off the court in any way?
yeah, for sure. Because at the end of the day, like it's bigger than basketball, right? Like it's what we do for a career, but it doesn't make up our lives, Well, in a sense it does. But just being able to, just learn about his journey and how he got to where he was, right? And I ask him a lot of times, like, yo, how was it for you in OKC? Because that's where it all started. And you watch highlights of him back then, it's like it's a completely different player. You still see the same, you can see the potential, but, it's different. So being able to just kind of pick his brain about when he first got into the league and him sharing insight and like, yo, you should do this or focus on this really helps me.
To that point, I know that you had signed a two-way contract, which that in itself signifies a lot of constant movement, right? From G League to NBA, different roles, different expectations. Did that affect the way that you play the game and your confidence in any way?
That's a good question. I wouldn't say it affected the way I played. Is it ideal? No. I remember on draft night, because I wasn't familiar with any of the NBA process, right? And like I said, I didn't know whether I was going to get drafted or not. And so after I got picked, I was celebrating with my friends and family, and my agent calls me into the room, and he's like, yo, just by the way, I just want to let you know that you're going to be on a two-way. And no disrespect to being on a two-way, you know what I'm saying? Like, your journey is your journey. But, that's not how I wanted to start off, And so, you kind of just use it as a chip on your shoulder, right? Just trying to prove constantly. So I wouldn't say it affects anything at all, no.
Want to mention in a previous presser, you had said, I'm too good for the G League, which can be misconstrued, right?
100%.
It could be taken the wrong way, as cocky, as unappreciative. As a professional across any league, how do you delineate confidence versus cockiness?
That's another great question. First off, that quote, right, they definitely clipped it.
Yes.
I definitely said I want to prove that I'm too good for the G League. But, at this point in the stage that we're on is everyone can do the simple things, right? And so how do you separate yourself is having a stronger mindset and being mentally disciplined and mentally strong. So what makes MJ, obviously his work ethic, but also the way he thought the game. Like, I can guarantee you, and he said it before, like every game he went into, you know, he believed that he was the best player on the floor. And so you think that, you're going to be that. You know what I mean? So I think how you think of yourself is very important when it comes to, I mean, a lot of things in life, but specifically sports, because you're going to go as far as your mind takes you.
So because you have played both in the G League and NBA, obviously as spectators, we could see the difference, but as a player, I'm sure it's different. How would you differentiate G League basketball from NBA basketball?
I would say there's just less mistakes. Some stuff in the G League you can get away with that you can't get away with on the NBA floor. And obviously, you know, just better athletes, positions usually taller in each position. I wouldn't say it's very far off, but I would also say that there's definitely a difference. You know what I mean? So I think the G League is great. I think it's great for development. And honestly, that's probably the most impactful basketball season I've had in my life, playing in the G League my first year, even though, you know, I didn't necessarily want to. Like, it's crazy how God kind of works and put me there so then that I can gain my confidence and kind of develop at my pace instead of having to kind of be ready to go. You know what I'm saying?
Under those big lights and on a bigger stage.
100%.
Yes.
100%.
And you talk about confidence. I learned that you have 3 older brothers.
Yep.
I'm sure they played a role in that confidence that you're talking about, but also your competitive edge.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. We would play 21 outside. So I lived next to an elementary school growing up. So that was our hoop. And so we would play 21. They're all closest to me in age is 5 years. So I was always the younger brother. And eventually, there was a long period where, you know what I'm saying, like I didn't stand a chance. But eventually, I caught up and I was able to kind of hang with them a little bit. You know, I snuck in a couple wins here and there. They might disagree, but I definitely did. And so from there, going and playing against, you know, kids my age, it was just like, wow, you know, this is pretty easy. So definitely some intense games playing 21, definitely some fights that my mom, you know what I'm saying, had to get in between, but it was all healthy, you know.
And now I'm sure you're saying that you're beating them, no doubt, on the court.
Oh, yeah, they know that too, you know what I'm saying? So,
a little friendly competition never hurts.
Yeah, never hurts.
So this is a profession that you have to prove yourself day in and day out. How do you stay grounded in that environment?
A lot of it has to do with my faith. I think, you know, we're all living for a bigger purpose. You know, some people, you know, everybody has their own opinions, but prioritizing the main things. A combination of my faith, but also not letting anything take you away from who you are as a person and what kind of got you there. You know what I'm saying? Not a lot of people, but some people tend to forget about where they came from, you know? So it's like trying to, you know, not do that and make sure that, okay, no matter where I am and whatever the environment or situation is, like I'm always going to stay true to myself. So that's what I try to do.
So you are from Virginia. We talked a little bit off camera when you came in about DMV, but how would you say being born and raised in Virginia, how did that help you become who you are today?
Yeah, I say this all the time, and I'll say it again. I think the DMV has the best basketball in the world. I feel like everyone's biased to, you know, wherever they grew up.
Totally.
But, I mean, we can sit here and go through the players, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, facts are facts. But, you know, it definitely shaped who I was. Like, always just playing against good competition, being able, like, iron sharpens iron. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, again, it's part of just not kind of forgetting where you came from. And sometimes when you're down, you got to just tap into your roots to make sure that you're energized and have the strength to kind of, you know, get through whatever situation it is.
Yeah, I love that. Because you're right. Some people do be forgetting where they came from,
Yep.
want to act all Hollywood and
exactly.
And all that.
Coming in with shades and stuff. Like, yeah, you was never wearing shades before.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
100%. So back into your game. I know you mentioned it earlier on, you being left-handed. So already being a part of an elite group, you know, 30 teams, 15 players. And then within that, it's a select few who are left-handed. They say about, I think, 10% are in the NBA are left-handed.
Oh, wow, I didn't even know that.
So, yeah, don't quote me on that. That's what
Right. But we were around there.
Yeah, around
okay,
there.
we were around that area.
Around there. So, do you feel that being left-handed gives you an edge on the court?
100%. I think, especially when you're a kid, right? Because like kids you can't really grasp the fact that someone's left-handed, especially like when you're playing a game too. You know, everything's going so fast. And so like when I was younger, it's like, okay, you can guarantee at least a good 4 points, 4 to 6 points just off rip before they realize, like, okay, yo, he's left-handed, like, we got to stop it. But now, with scouting reports and stuff like that, like, it's so detailed that everyone knows what hand you are, where you like
Right.
to shoot and stuff like that. So I wouldn't say it's so much of an advantage now, but definitely growing up, AAU days when, you don't watch film on teams, you just go in there and play. It's like, all right, I can sneak in a cool, like, 6 to 8, you know what I'm saying?
For sure. And so now, as you mentioned, James, of course, is a left-handed as well. He's a master at getting to a spot, creating space between defenders. So knowing that lefties can exploit angles and spacing and timing, could you talk a little bit more about how, if you study James in that way, or if he said anything particular about the game because you both are left-handed?
Actually, I haven't asked him anything about, like, left-handed, so to say, but it's kind of like our little thing, you know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, we have a lot of lefties on the team now. But when we first got there, we didn't. And so it was like, just like some lefty stuff, you know what I'm saying? Lefty shit, we would say. So it was cool to be able to kind of bond with him over that, especially like when he first got there. Like, I don't really know nothing about him. I seen his highlights, but you know what I'm saying? To be able to kind of like, all right, we're both lefties, like, it kind of helped ease it into it a little bit.
So when you're picking teammates' brains, obviously you have them at your disposal, but you're not by their side 24/7. And in a previous interview, you stated how you are an overthinker. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
gotten over that little phase yet. How does that sort of come up in practice or games as an overthinker?
Sometimes you can beat yourself with your thoughts, So I think recognizing what is true and what is real is the most important thing you can do, right? Like, for example, right, for me, what teams were saying when I was in the draft process was, well, can he shoot? You know what I'm saying? Can he shoot on an NBA floor? I mean, shot 35% in college. Wasn't really my role, but, like, it's not terrible. It's not great. But, you sit and you think, right, for someone that's an overthinker, it's like, how many shots have I shot as a basketball player? How many three-pointers, to say, in this situation have I shot my whole entire life? Couldn't even tell you, probably hundreds of thousands. So it's like, as an overthinker, you sit and you think, like, I've done this so much and this has been my whole life. Why would I sit here and question my ability to do it? You know what I'm saying? Anyone can hop on a video game that they've played, I don't know, maybe 1,000 hours in, and you're like, oh, I'm cold. Like, I'm finna, you know what I'm saying? All this and that. So it's like, why can't you apply that to real life? So that's just kind of how I kind of got over the whole overthinking thing.
How does that voice sound for you? Is it critical? Is it strategic? Is it loud? Is it calmer now?
Yeah, no, it's for sure loud. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like overbearing sometimes. But again, like I said, like, you got to find ways to manage. And plus, when you're playing too, it's like you don't got time to think about that. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be on to the next play. That's why I love basketball, because it's just so fast paced. You know what I mean? You make a mistake offensively, go get it back defensively, and vice versa.
How would you say that internal voice has changed from year 1 to year 3?
Oof, that's another great question. I'm more confident in what I'm doing, right? Like, I know the game plan offensively and defensively, so I'm able to just be more confident in that voice of, well, are you sure? You know what I mean? Kind of, it just disappears because it's like, oh, no, I'm sure. You know what I mean? So just being more comfortable around teammates, coaches, staff also plays a big role into just, silencing that voice that comes in and out,
Totally. You mentioned coaches. How has Coach Tyloo helped with your development?
Yeah, he's been a positive enforcer. I think as a coach, I mean, you got to give coaches credit, because most of the times they get blamed for things that aren't their fault. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, we play. But I think the most honorable thing about him is how he always accepts accountability for our losses. You know what I'm saying? And it takes a lot of humility to do that. You could say it's part of his job, but, he could be like, yo, these dudes tripping.
Blaming
you know what I'm saying?
all
Yeah,
y'all, yeah.
exactly. But again, it's a team sport. It's a team effort. But Tyloo just, he was a player. So it's nice to be this is my really first time being coached by, like, a player coach. You know what I'm saying? Especially at this high level.
Yeah.
So no knock to my old coaches, because I know they're going to look at me and be like, yo, what are you talking about?
Right.
But, like, he played in the NBA, so
He gets it.
he gets it. You know what I'm saying? So what some of our days look like, and sometimes what some of our practices look like. Him as a previous player knows like, yo, okay, maybe they might need some rest. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of coaches will run you into the ground. You know what I mean? So him being able to balance that out, definitely helps.
Regardless of how lenient he is, I know that coaches will be real with you guys, especially as top elite players. What's the toughest criticism or feedback that you've gotten?
I'll say this. When I first got into the league, right, and I spent a lot of that time in the G League season, everyone was like, yo, you need to play harder. I'm like, what is that? First off, what does that even mean? You know what I'm saying?
You're like, I'm out here
right,
playing my hardest.
I'm trying. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not, I'm trying to win the game. So,
Right.
like, what does that mean? But there's levels, and there's a certain level that you need to get to, and like a standard that you got to hit to be able to, hang with whoever is on the court. And so, again, I just took it and received it. Pause. I heard the criticism, and I just responded the way I thought was best. So I just was going out there every night and was like, all right, like if I got to, kill myself, it's a little dramatic. But if I got, leave it all on the floor, I'll leave it all on the floor. So haven't heard that since. So, hopefully that's a wrap for that.
There you go.
And I don't have to hear that ever again. But that's a perfect example.
I love that. Well, also, you know how to take direction because you played 5 years in college.
Yeah.
And most players are one and done. That's like unprecedented to hear about, right? Or at least 1 to 2 years, and then they declare for the draft. So being able to have that time in college, which in the pros, like you're mentioning, they're expecting you to be on your A game at all times. So what did those 5 years in college help prepare you for? And maybe on the flip side of that, what did it absolutely not set you up for?
Yeah. I would say the thing that prepared me for most was maturity. You're not the same person you are at 18 that you are at 22. And I mean, it goes on and on and on. So kind of being able to just handle stressful situations better. And if things aren't going my way, not feel like the world's, falling in on me and concaving on me. So that's a big thing. And two, just being able to kind of get my body right for what was going to be coming. So I think those are the two areas that really helped doing 5 years. One thing it just didn't prepare me for, I like to say I'm a quick learner, but I am when it makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but like it has to click in my brain before I can kind of turn into this mode of like, okay, it all kind of makes sense. So to kind of go off that question, it didn't really prepare me for how, the politics of the NBA, because that's,
It's a business at
it's
the
a
end of the
business
day.
at the end of the day, and you get reminded of that. You know what I'm saying? Kind of practices, the travel. I mean, we traveled, but again, the 82 game thing, like you play 30 in college if you get to the NCAA tournament. So it's like finding that balance in, I'm playing a lot of games and we're traveling a lot. That college doesn't really prepare you for that. So it's just one of the things you just gotta on the fly pick up and be cool with.
On the court in college, you played mostly the 4, and then you got to the NBA, you switched back to your natural position at the wing. What was that pivot like for you? Was it a little difficult to make that shift?
For sure. And I think that's why I said the G League was so like impactful for me, because in high school I would play the point sometimes. Okay. And then and when I got to college, my coach put me at the 4. Well, kind of how that kind of all went down, to sum it up, So I redshirted my first half of my freshman year at George Mason. And as I'm redshirting, like it almost was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders, and I was able to kind of go at my own pace versus trying to like catch up to these guys. And so once that weight got lifted, I started just like body got stronger because I was doing a lot of extra lifts. There was just no pressure, So one of my teammates went down. His name was Gonar Mar. He was playing the 4 at the time. And I remember coach calls me into the office and he's like, "You've been killing it in practice. We'd like," because Gonar, I believe he was out for the season or for an extended period of time with the injury. And my coach called me into the office and he was like, "We would like to pull you out your red shirt and have you finish the last 15 games of the season with us." He's like, "It's your choice though, because you'll never get those 15 games back." And so ultimately, after like a little bit of time, I mean, it wasn't like, "Yo, go sit on this for a week." It was like,
Need to know ASAP.
yeah, like, "Yo, let me know tomorrow." So it was like, all right, it's like I came to play. So I ended up coming out of my red shirt. And then that's kind of how it started with me being at the 4, because Gonar went down. And so then from there,
Next man up.
I come in, I start doing well. Coach is like, okay, we kind of got this good thing going on. Finish off the season. I ended up averaging 10 points for someone that was redshirting to come in and average 10 was like, I was like pretty proud of that. And so then that kind of led me to playing the 4 my whole college career. But I knew if I wanted to get to the NBA, I would have to be on the wing. And so when I was transferring from George Mason after my coach got fired, my biggest thing was like, yo, I want to play on the wing because I want to get to the NBA, and I'm too small to play 4 in the NBA. So I committed to Miami, obviously, as we know, and they were like, yeah, our 3 guard just transferred out, so we need a 3 guard. So I'm like, this is perfect. So we end up, Charlie Moore ends up committing, and so I fell back to the 4. And at that point, I was like, you know what, this is just God's plan. Like, I'm just going to find a way to make it work. If it works. But luckily, we ended up playing small ball, like, pretty much my whole college career. I was always on, like, I never really had, like, a 7-footer on my team. So I was able to kind of be more of, like, in that flex spot. So not being, like, locked into, like, a traditional 4. I was able to kind of, like, do a little bit of both. So getting to the G League, it was nice to be able to have that year to kind of just, like, get comfortable being in my natural position again, because it was 5 years I was playing a 4, so it's like, I know it's natural and all, but like, I gotta shake the rust off a little bit, so it was dope. And then now, I feel like I learned a lot from that year, so just kind of putting it all together.
Which do you enjoy playing? Was it, I know you mentioned playing a little bit of point in, like, growing up, and then wing versus 4, which do you, if you had to pick one that you...
I would say the wing for sure. I've always had so one of my teammates growing up, his name was Jalen Williams. He was my point guard from 6th grade to honestly in high school, like all of high school too. So I never really had to play the point guard. And so that's what kind of turns me off from the point guard position. I'll play it, what I'm saying? I'll do whatever I got to do. But, like, I've always had someone that was, the primary ball handler to bring it up. And then the 4, I mean, it's just the 4 is the 4. It's important, but it's not really, like, you're just setting screens and stuff. So it's like, I mean, basketball's evolved and changed. But the wing, to answer your question, definitely the wing is where I feel most comfortable at.
Like you said, we're moving more and more towards positionless basketball. For many describing your game, obviously you're versatile on both ends of the floor. You've called yourself a jack of all trades. So what would you say is the most valuable skill a player could possess in order to thrive in this league?
I would honestly say, what's your mental look like? Because if you got to the league, you're good enough to be in there. You're good enough to be there. Again, kind of what we talked about a little bit earlier, it just comes down to, are you able to push past, like, any of the challenges and not lose confidence in the journey that you're going to face? Because at the end of the day, it's like when you get drafted to a team, you're going against the guys on your team. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's your competition. And obviously, there's some vets and there's experience, so you got to be able to be mentally strong enough to know that there's going to be some challenges, but, like, you got to push through and be confident in your abilities. So I'll say the skill, I wouldn't necessarily even say it's about basketball, because at that point you pretty much, your game's pretty well-rounded. Just being able to mentally compete.
In addition to having to relearn a new position, would you say that there's any part of your game or more so your identity that you had to rebuild?
Ooh. Knowing that what you relied on getting you to that point, you need more. Again, there's just levels to it, and so you think you can get away with certain stuff, but it's like you can't. And so it almost forces you to grow, which is good. But in the moment, it can feel like, well, why isn't this working out the way it's always worked out for me? So just kind of being able to you learn to be more flexible, and you learn to kind of play harder.
Well, we've seen you showcase that hard work and your skill set. In November, you had a career-high 22 points against the Denver Nuggets. What do you remember most about that night?
I remember I was very anxious, actually, because this year for me I've dealt with a lot of injuries, and I only missed one game in college for injuries. So it was really weird for me at this point in my career to deal with so many injuries back to back. when I've always been healthy my whole life. So at the time, to answer your question, it was like I haven't played a game. I hadn't played a game that season yet.
Yeah.
Preseason and training camp I was playing, but I missed the first, I want to say, 8-9 games. And so I remember I was like, okay, like, you know, I want to show everybody what I've improved on. And so I ended up playing, you know, pretty good. And so I felt good about myself. But for me, it's always like, you know, I'm trying to be consistent as possible. So it doesn't matter kind of how I play one night. It matters how I play throughout the whole season. And being able to kind of do that in the G League really set the bar really high for myself. Again, I told you there's levels to it and stuff, but I know what I'm capable of. And so I try to sit there and achieve that every night.
For those situations and for other young players, how do you find that rhythm quickly when your number is called?
You just got to trust your training, honestly. Again, it's cliche and people say it all the time, but it really comes down to when you're not playing a game, what are you doing? You know, you should be working, you know, so it's like you don't have time to think. You just got to act, and you got to rely on all the things that I've worked on prior that's going to get me through this moment, you know?
Autopilot?
For real, though. Like, for real. Like,
well, I was going to ask, so what is that when you settle into a game and enter that flow state? What does that feel like?
I actually was talking to somebody about this the other day. I can't think who, but it's crazy because you don't hear anything in the crowd. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's music that plays during the games. I don't even hear. I couldn't even tell you what songs were being played. Don't hear the crowd cheering. You hear it after a shot, but like, you know, they're yelling.
I'm
defense.
like in Intuit Dome too. All them
yeah,
lights.
Yeah, for real. It's like you really you're so locked in on the court and what's going on that you don't really everything else around you. It's almost as like the court and everything else is black. You know what I'm saying? So that's like kind of the best way to describe it. But it's like you're just so in tune into the moment.
But you're really just locked in.
You're really just locked in.
So you've had seasons, though, where, I mean, we allude to that Miami team that you were on. You were in the starting lineup on a team that went to the Final Four. So you've had seasons where you were that guy. And now you're in a position where you're fighting for opportunity. Which version is harder to manage mentally, being a star or an underdog?
Oof. That's a great question. They both have their challenges. I would say definitely the second one that you said. What was it again? I can't quote it word for word. The underdog.
Fighting for an opportunity.
Yeah, fighting for opportunity, because there takes a lot of mental like warfare, you know, because everyone in the league was probably a star of their team at some point, you know. And so, for an example, right, like not starting, like that's still something I still, you know, fight with every day, because I started my whole life, and I'm blessed to say that. I don't say that like, oh, look at me, you know what I'm saying? But it's just like when you get subbed into a game and the game already has its flow and you got to be ready to go. I have mad respect for like all the teammates that I play with that didn't start, and just people that are going through that, because it's really a skill. So like the sixth man year. Like, why am I struggling?
Sixth man of the year
award. Mad respect to those dudes like Lou Will, who got it multiple times and stuff like that. Like, it's just mad respect, because it's different. You know, you gotta really come in and be locked in from the jump. You know.
That's a good point. I never really thought of it like that.
Yeah, for real. Especially when you haven't done it your whole life too.
Right.
You know, but you just gotta find a way. That's all it is.
Yeah.
That's it.
For sure.
That's it.
Well, we allude to that Final Four team, and now you're on a team seasoned with veterans. Having experience on both of those sort of teams, could you rank me the qualities that you believe comprise a successful team?
Oof, yeah. I think the biggest one is leadership. At the end of the day, the coaches can only go so far, and you got to have someone on your team that can sit here and almost be the voice of the coach, but for the players, you know. I think, too, is like work ethic. Like, you know, some people love to say that they're in the NBA, and some people love just the game of basketball. So you need a group of guys that actually love the game of basketball, you know. And then 2 or 3, the culture, you know, like everything else is cool and all, but if the culture is bad and it's not like really working and people aren't vibing, like you see OKC, for example, right?
Yeah.
And like we only see what's on TV. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But their just camaraderie and togetherness is like something you got to respect. And they won a championship last year, and it's like, Or are we surprised? Nah, because them dudes look like they love playing with each other and just love being around each other.
As you mentioned, we can see that they have a very strong chemistry.
Yeah.
And I was watching the NBA Cup, and they played some feature with Shea in it. And Shea said every game is a performance. Do you view basketball in that way?
Yeah, honestly. And I think one of the realizations that I had in the past 2 years was like, sports are really just entertainment. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you look at it in that lens, something that you've been taking serious your whole life, just to almost like get like tripped and be like, you're just like entertainment business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's wild to really sit and think about that and know that, like I said, like it's something I love and I'm passionate about. So I'm just the entertainment. So it is a performance, you know, and it's like just as much as it's important about winning, it's important about filling up seats in the arena.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And front office is going to make decisions based on winning and filling the arena.
Also, when you think about, performance, it's all about that showcase of skill, output driven. And so when we think about basketball, that's what it is, like grabbing rebounds and putting up points and being flashy. If the NBA got rid of stats tomorrow, so no logging points, no percentages, no rebounds, what would you want to be known for?
Ooh. See, I don't want to say nothing cliche like playing hard.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's so like played out. I would say, like, for me, I like finding new ways. Like, I feel like I could say I play a little bit unorthodox. You know what I mean? And there's guys that I feel like play similarly, or I play similarly to them too. So just kind of like having his own way of playing, you know, not kind of being original in my own.
Yeah, creative.
You know what I mean?
Have
Creative.
your own flair.
Exactly.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
that would definitely be that. Like,
Okay.
you know, he ain't just blending with everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, he kind of found a way to make his own thing work in this situation.
Totally. I love that. So when you look at yourself in film, what is the one thing that you look out for? And also, what's one thing that you may dread seeing?
So I would say something I look out for, obviously, is like, all right, did I mess up any of the defensive coverages? Because, again, we have so much firepower with Kawhi and James that it's like, and they're pretty ball dominant guys. And so it's like, you know, you kind of got to let them do their thing, let them cook. And then it's most important for you to not mess up anything defensively. You know what I'm saying? Offensively, cool, you can get it back or they're going to get the ball at some point. But defensively, making sure that I'm sound and I ain't messing nothing up into a game plan. And speaking on that, it's crazy. There's so much that goes into a game plan, and I can't speak for the other teams in the league because I've only been on the Clippers.
Yeah.
But, like, I think that's something that's very overlooked is, like, yo, like, the game plan is the game plan, and don't mess that shit up because if you do, you're coming out. You know what I mean? Everyone obviously got their own leashes and stuff.
So it's really, you got to stick to it.
Stick to it, and you know, you prepare for the first five, right? Because it's a starting five, but then they also have five more people getting subbed in. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you got to know who does what and make sure that you're doing with the game plan. You know what I'm saying?
Well, one thing about it, the league never waits. Everyone is always leveling up.
Yeah.
In the NBA, you cannot fall off when everyone is outdoing themselves each season.
Yeah.
So how do you reinvent your game to keep the pace?
At the end of each season, you got to kind of sit back and, you know, look at the numbers. Because it's like, let's just say, for instance, we'll just bring up three-point shot I brought up earlier. It's like I can sit here and say I'm a 40% shooter, right? But if you look at the stats at the end of the year and it says you're only 37, it's like, all right, so there's 3% I can get better at becoming a better three-point shooter. You know, so really focusing and keeping your confidence in what you do well, but also, like, knowing what you need to get better at. It takes a lot of, like, you got to put your pride aside to do that. You know what I mean? So just locking in on, you know, what you didn't necessarily do well that year. So then, I mean, it's an easy recipe to improve when you're just focusing on your weaknesses, you know?
Would you say that you have a lot of pride? Are you that type of player?
You know, I do and I did, but it's an active journey to, you know, not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I try.
You're not bigger than the program.
I'm not bigger than the program for sure, and they'll let you know that for sure, and they'll, you know, but sometimes you just got to put your pride aside, you know, let go and just let God, honestly.
Everyone is chasing that end goal, right? Earn a ring, raise a trophy, all that good stuff. To that point, I want to bring up the perspective of your teammate, James, once again. Obviously, we know him to be an elite player who's had the opportunity to win a ring, at least one ring. He was on a podcast a few years back that I was watching, and the host brought up, rings. And in response, James said that rings don't define him, and he's not fazed that he hasn't won a championship because he knows how good he is and he knows how strong of a leader he is. As someone learning from James, how would you define success in this league?
You can ask a bunch of athletes what's more important to them, winning MVP or winning a championship, and I guarantee you all the answers are going to be different. And so for myself, I think, winning a championship, because it's a team sport at the end of the day, and MVP is cool. And I'm not just trying to say the answer that I feel like should be said. It just comes down to how are you able to help the team win a championship versus own personal accolades. Because if you do everything right, they all should kind of just be one together. Look at guys like MJ, LeBron, stuff like that. Like, they've clearly put it all together. So it's a hard question to answer, but, everyone has their own terms of success.
If we zoom out, though, and, from college to G League to the NBA, which phase do you believe has taught you the most about who you are?
Definitely the G League. Kind of got to swallow the pride there. And you also got to, you're constantly improving. And a lot of people don't know this. Is like, I would have, 30-point games, but I'm getting a text from, front office saying like, yo, but why'd you only have 7 rebounds? You know what I'm saying? So it's like you're so high on yourself at one point, but then, not that they knock you back down, but they're trying to get you to do more and get out of your comfort zone. So managing that while also like, proving to everybody like, yo, I am too good to be in the G League. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, and it was fun too though, because I got to actually play basketball and it wasn't like stressful. I was able to kind of get back into my zone, get back into, just being comfortable. And I don't think without the G League, I'd be the player I am today.
What is the one thing that you hope people say about the way that Jordan Miller approached the game?
I would say just being a professional. I think there's great players that came before me, and there's great players that are going to come after me. But what can kind of separate yourself is who are you as a person. So like professionalism / person, I kind of categorize those together. So how can I leave a mark outside of basketball? You know what I mean? Whether that's impacting the community, whether that's relationships I built with the coaching staff and staff in general. I think that's what's most important to me because, like I said, at the end of the day, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, it's like, there's going to be a new cool thing, cool new shiny toy, but your character isn't going to change, So that would be it for me.
We talked a little bit before we started filming about your career aspirations beyond basketball.
Yep.
And what would that entail?
Yeah, being a sports psych. Shout out my guy Michael Urban if he sees this or if he's listening. He's really set a good example on how to be there for people that you may not necessarily can relate to. We're all NBA players, but two, just being one of the guys, and so I respect that. And so like I want to be able to help out young athletes or athletes that are professionals, and guide them through mental blocks that they may be facing. So that's something I'm looking forward to. I'm not looking forward to that school again though, I can tell you that for sure. I thought I was done with that, but God had different plans for me. So just being able to I really feel like I found my purpose over these past like 3 weeks. It's been a journey
3 weeks,
for sure.
so it was real recent.
But I love helping people out and being there for people, and I think all my homies can sit there and attest like, yo, he's always there for me if I need him. And so just to be able to carry that outside of my inner circle will be dope.
So I do want to end on 2 quick segments before we officially wrap. So First up, if you could steal one skill from any NBA player, who would it be?
Skill?
Yes.
I would say maybe Steph and golfing. Like I would love to golf more.
Have you ever been on the green?
I have. I did 9 holes, not 18, and I tell you, I was just like, yeah, I don't know how people do 18. I wish I was better at golfing, but like I feel like, as far as just like business negotiations and talking and just, building relationships, golfing is what people seem to do. So it's like I would love to be able to actually be good at it. So then that way I can kind of like, it can be competitive, but also like
you can
vibes.
be in the country clubs and all that,
Yeah,
networking.
yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know about country clubs, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, just be out there and dabble a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe over summer you can sharpen your skill. 3 songs in your rotation right now.
Ooh, FDO, First Day Out, Pooh Shiesty. It's a banger. You snapped on that one. Ooh, that's a good question. No Thank You, Bryson Tiller. Big R&B guy.
That was a big switch from Pooh Shiesty.
I know, but you said right now, so you know what I'm saying? And then the last one, I would say probably just a Drake song. I can't even think of one right now to begin with. But
Drake is always in the rotation.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah, hits it all.
Totally. Player you would love to dunk on?
LeBron, for sure.
That's
you know what I'm saying?
answer.
Yeah, that's a poster that's going up in my room too.
What's a non-basketball talent that you swear you're elite at?
Ping pong.
Oh.
I'm like really good at ping pong, and like I'm with whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like anyone who wants to run it, we can run it, and everyone always thinks they can beat me, and I've yet to. Everyone always talks so much smack. Like, oh, I do this. I played this. I played then. Like, all right, we're gonna sit on this table.
So you really be.
Like I really, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not sweet at all.
Do you have footage?
I don't have any footage, but you know what? Sometimes you just gotta show the work. You know what I'm saying?
You're
like,
right.
you know what I mean?
Like, let the work speak for itself.
Exactly.
All right. If anyone wants some smoke with ping pong,
let me know. I'm with whatever.
Last one. So your jersey number. You were 11 throughout college and up until last year. Now you're 22. Is there any particular story behind your jersey number?
Yeah. So we're gonna get into it. I'm glad you actually asked. So I was 11 my whole life. And obviously we signed Brooke Lopez. And so he wore 11 his whole career, and I believe in college too. So I get called into the front office when we sign him. And I'm not going to say who, but they're like, Brooke wants 11. He's willing to, do whatever to get 11. He's cool. He has connections with Disney. He's like, get you some Disney tickets. You know what I'm saying? With 11, I'm like, I got to think on it because, 11.
That's been with you.
It's been with me. And I even have a nonprofit, and it's called Industry 11. This is, part of the brand, too. This ain't even just, you know what I mean? I got 11 tatted on me, too. So I'm like, yo, this is, 11 ride or die. Long story short, in the summer, some things had happened, and I ended up getting waived. And so he snuck in and took 11 from me, and I didn't get anything in return. But you know what?
Disneyland
tickets, nothing, no anything. And I'm waiting for the right time to bring it up to him. You know what I'm saying? I'm definitely going to. But again, I just doubled down on it. You know what I'm saying? And use that to kind of be like, this is a fresh start. I came in here with 11. I've been through what I've been through. But 22, we're not going to carry that negative energy with 22. This is just going to be a fresh start.
Well, now we know.
And it's weird, too, because that first game of the season, I had 22 points. So I'm like, wow.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying?
It's fate.
Yeah. It's wild.
It's definitely fate. Well, wrapping up, I always let our guests put us on. So that means they could put us on to, a life hack. My last guest put us on to her little facial or skincare routine. You can put us on to your homie's business, restaurant, movie, whatever you'd like. Just a time to show people some love and resources, all that good stuff.
I'll show some love to God. I think, it's never too late to turn to Jesus and accept him as our Lord and Savior. I think it's important to, surrender yourself and find the comfort in that. A lot of people think you gain something from, strengthening your relationship with whatever it is, But in reality, you really lose something. You lose the stress, you lose the worry, the worrisome, the anxiousness. And so I think, something that you should get put on to 2026, I think it should definitely be Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
I agree.
Amen.
You can never go wrong.
You can never go wrong.
Then start now.
Exactly.
For sure. Well, thank you, Jordan, so much for pulling up. I really appreciate it.
Yep.
For everyone watching and tuning in, I really appreciate the love and support. Comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys on the next episode.